Good morning and welcome. I'm Bob Pace, your host. And we're going to talk on this podcast about how to fight CPS and how to save your children. It's a very uh, troublesome topic to talk about because of all the problems with CPS. I'm going to try to put you guys at ease about CPS. Now, um, CPS is Child Protection Services. If you don't know what it stands for, it's a branch of social services. It has other names in other states. But when I mention CPS, I'm talking about the social workers that deal with the protection of our children through through neglect and abuse and family reconsideration, family reconcile. Um, Couple things. This show is a live podcast found on Facebook, broadcast on YouTube, and it's produced by Vincent W. Davis and Associates. Vincent W. Davis is a professional family law attorney. Now, the law firm has several other legal attorneys for legal help, but the one this one you really need importance of is a family law attorney. And why I'm saying that, why it's so important, is because if you can think about open heart surgery, you're going to have a professional doctor perform the task of open heart surgery. Open heart surgery is the same thing as dealing with CPS, the same issues with CPS, because CPS, Child Protection Services, is um, a very hard agency to work with, to navigate. You're not going to know the laws or the petitions, and you're working against an agency, in my case, because we're talking from Southern California, that it's corrupt. And I'll get to more about details. And it seems like over the 100 some people I've talked to, it's corrupt elsewhere. And it's all based on money. It's the greed of money that is controlling CPS. Now, there's a couple tools that you should get when you deal with CPS. One is you need to have an attorney. Just like I mentioned, open heart surgery, you need a doctor that's gone to medical school, that is gone through an internship and uh, spent many years to become a doctor before he started to do open heart surgery. Well, you need an attorney like that. You're going to try to do it yourself, which I tried to in the beginning, and I tried to use the public defender to give you. They will give you an attorney, but the public defender, most of them are no good. And what I mean by that is that they will leave people. They'll have 20 cases load or even more, and they will end up um, not doing your case. Now, Um, the attorney I'm talking about for our law firm is Vincent W. Davis. He is a family law attorney. He does um, fight for you, and he will get your children back. He is a trial attorney. He has many, many years. He practices in Southern California, but he'll go to Northern California. He'll go to any of the states out there. Um, right now, he's offering a free consultation for 30 minutes up to an hour um, of his time to talk to you about the strategies of fighting CPS and getting your children back. Now, I do want to emphasize that um, that it is free. It's very important that you say my name, Bob Pace, and you say that Bob Pace told you. And when you talk to Mr. Davis, you tell him that Bob Pace sent you. It's really important to do that. But he'll offer it. You just need to just call 888 uh, 6582, and he can um, help you And after you spent your 1 hour free time with him, because he does charge for a 30-minute or an hour consultation, but he's offering right now free if you mention my name, Bob Pace. And so call 888-888-6582, and you tell him that Bob Pace sent you, and that when you speak to him, you say Bob Pace, but you set a time and a date that works for you. He has a schedule, a real busy schedule. At the bottom, there is a ticket running, and that gives the website where his calendar is located. Look at his calendar, see which day or time that would be working best for you. But um, he's an attorney that you, after you talk to him, you're going to want. Now, we do have a guest that's trying to come on right now. They've been having some internet problems. I try to have a guest on every day. I'm on the show twice a day, 7 days a week. Show times are 10 in the morning and 7 o'clock at night. And that's all on Pacific Standard Time. There's one exception. On Sunday, my show starts a half an hour later because there's another show going on that they wanted a little bit of break there. So it's really important that, um, you know, uh, that you listen to the show, but also, if you want to interact with the show, there's several ways you can. First way is you can write a comment. Now, it's really important when you're writing a comment that you give your name and your city and state. If you happen to be from a country, because I've had other countries call in. I've had countries from United Kingdom, from Canada, Australia, and even Ghana. So it is worldwide. This is being transmitted, and losing your children is a worldwide epidemic. And so that way, if you wanted to answer a question, you just put your name, the city and state, the country and city, and then you put down whether or not whether you have an allegation or you and what your children, how many children involved, and so forth, and then ask the question, and I will put it up, and then we all can help you answer the question. Now, that's one way you can interact with this live podcast. Another way is that you can call in right now at 626-698-0990, and that's a direct line to my phone. During this hour show, my office phone's on, and I'll accept calls, and I'll put you live on the show. I'll put you live on the show so that you can hear, so that people can hear what you have to say, and that way you can tell them your story. Now, if you're not ready to be live on the show and you'd like to still speak on the show, you can call 888-888-6582 and ask to be a guest speaker on the show. And you pick out one of those 7 days, one of those 14 show times, and ask to be on my show. And I'm really happy to have you. I really would love to see you express what's bothering you and so forth. Because I have been in with CPS for 14 years. I started shortly after losing my job in 2010, and so I've been with them. My case really got bad in 2015, and then at the end of 2017, I got my children back, but I've still been fighting them afterwards. So it is important that you get as much information to fight your case, because you're going to be suddenly overwhelmed by the lack of transparency, the deceptions they use, and the lies that they do. CPS is not your friend, and you got to be very careful, leery of them. They are supposed to protect you, but they're supposed to protect your children, but they have alternative motives they want. Where I went through my court here in Southern California, it's a billion dollar business of making money off children. Every child that they have in their hands, they get money from the federal and state. It's not small chump change, it's big change. And they use it for all kinds of things for their Taj Mahal building that is so wealthy. And the person, the top dog, I've met him. I've met the managers because I tried to fight because my constitutional rights were all the time being violated, all the time being violated. So that's hard when your rights are violated and so forth. But I know that as you listen to this, things will come up in your mind about what you're going through, and that's the same thing with me. Hello there. We have Meldry that likes to be a speaker. Are you there? Can you hear me? Um, I'm hoping that she can come in. I think I'll try to add her. Hello there. Are you there? If you can hear me or see me, say something because I will try to add you there. We might have a guest speaker this morning, which is great. Um, I've told my story hundreds of times. It wasn't a pleasant thing I went through CPS, and the thing that I learned a lot from it. I learned a lot about how CPS works, and what I want to share is what my experiences are, and so forth. So um, it is sort of a very traumatic experience when you get involved with them. Now, uh, uh, Child Protection Services gets involved as a result of a phone call. Right now, all someone has to do is call in and make a complaint, and within 24 hours, by law, that complaint will be investigated, and then they go through an investigation period. The trouble with the complaints that are made by people is that CPS thinks they're true. Child Protection Services think they're true. So, with that being said, you are guilty until you're proven innocent. And nothing like any other court of law where you're innocent until you're proven guilty. But in this independency court and in the Child Protection Services, the social workers, when they receive the complaint, they think it's true. And that is a real hard burden to start off with because they could be true. They could be also, there's a habit of using social services. For instance, if there's a custody battle going on where one parent is separated from the other parent or they're both going through there, what will happen is one parent will try to pit the other parent, make them look bad, and try to alienate the kids from the parent. Now, I use the word alienate because that is used a lot in child protection services. Alienate could be from one parent to alienate their kids as they go through a custody battle. But CPS alienates the kids because they're not transparent. They don't tell the kids what your parents are doing, or they're improving, or if the parents are coming back. The kids are suddenly cut out. You know, traumatic effect is on a little 5-year-old or a little child that loves their mom and dad. They're brought in this world, and mother and dad were there for them, and suddenly they're swept off their feet. And the major theme is, you know, family reunification, but I don't think CPS believes that anymore. I really don't. In my case, they weren't trying to unify the family. They were trying to set my kids up for adoption through foster care. It is so bad what the Child Protection Services does to your family. They destroy your family. They destroyed my family. I lost my home because of them, and so many of my constitutional rights were violated by them. I lost a daughter too, not uh, by dying, but by divorcing the parents. We lost our daughter. It was really sad. Here's a 12-year-old daughter that's so convinced that Child Protection Services, that her parents are bad parents and not going to be interested in them. So you have to be careful of what they say to your children. You may want to also talk about your children ahead of time before all this happens. So when it does, you're better prepared for it. Because Child Protection Services is supposed to um, protect your children from abuse and neglect. Now, abuse is something like there could be verbal abuse through domestic violence where parents are arguing in front of kids. That's wrong. That's wrong. You do not argue or yell at your other half when you're going through that. You need to do what's called a timeout and discuss it at a later date, not when tempers are heavy and fine. And you don't want to use the kids, and the kids don't want to feel that they're being abandoned by their parents. So, domestic abuse there with the arguing, it's not violent, but it's abusive language, abusive behavior, and it really destroys the image of what children think of their parents. So I strongly recommend you use the thing called timeout. That would work out really, really, really good for you. Another form of abuse is physical abuse. That's where a child is maybe taught by the parent to put their hands in a flame on a stove to show that it's hot. That's not what you want to do. There's other ways that you can do that to have the kids associate with the heat of the stove or how hot it is or things like that. Another form of physical abuse is slamming a child against the wall or hurting them because they're crying. So many parents don't like the baby crying and think they always shut them up as they hit the child. That doesn't do anything but cause physical damage to them, and that's wrong. You do not do that there. So uh, that is a form. Another abuse is sexual abuse, sexual exploitation, sexual gratification with your child. You're not supposed to have sex with your children. You're not supposed to sell pictures of your children naked. You're not supposed to do anything pornographic with your children. And you're certainly not uh, supposed to force yourself on your children. That's wrong. That's wrong, and that's a form of abuse. And Child Protection Services will take your kids away from doing that. So, those are several of the abuses. Now, some neglect could be where they're not given clothing, or they're not given food, or they don't go to school. It's required that anybody under the age of 18 go to a school to get their education, learn how to come out into the real world and deal with the real world issues. So, with that being said, um, you know, uh, not providing clothing or meals or locking them for long times, that's all forms of neglect. Uh, Leave them in a car unattended while you go in the store shopping. That's neglect. A lot of parents are charged with that. So when these allegations come in, CPS is going to believe they're true until they're not proved, and then try to attempt to take your children, say it's extreme conditions, and they can't be with you, and then they're going to put them into a shelter. Um, Mine, I was having allegations by family members who were trying to destroy our family. So our kids were taken from it based on what um, family members were saying. And our children were taken from a beautiful home, good schools they're going to, doing well. They're well fed, well clothed. The only trouble is dad had lost his job through no fault of his own in 2010. So he's looking for work. So money's drying up. We had a very high lifestyle. So I was trying to hang on to the home as long as I could. And it's really sad that the downhill spiral that I was taken, and suddenly I had a perfect storm brewing. Not only was CPS being following false lies that with the advent of no job, I was losing my mom and dad, and that was the hardest thing to do. Is when you lose your mom and dad. they're slowly dying, and they wanted me to take their belongings out of their home and give it to family and friends and hold on to it. Um, and I did. I brought it home, but the problem mistakenly is I regret I didn't have some type of storage for my parents' belongings. I didn't have the money for it. That was one of the reasons. But I um, had all their personal belongings to dispose of, and I brought them home. And when I brought them home, um, I had really no place to store them. I didn't have money to put them in storage because I really wanted to. And I had them on the apron with tarps around them. But I lived in a private neighborhood, and so I had to. Um, 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 I had to. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there. Um, the problem with losing a job, not having a job, and your parents are dying and you have to take care of their belongings, then you got to deal with CPS. And CPS is the worst nightmare that I've ever been with. I was age 60 when I lost my job, and when CPS started contacting from family members on my wife's side about how terrible things are with my kids, our kids. And that wasn't true. That was something that they were trying to take her kids, and they've been doing so ever since I met my family, my wife's family. They didn't like the idea of her getting married. They didn't show up to the wedding, so my parents did, and I have a good background, and I thought she had a good background, but the parents started showing their true colors, and so they kept calling in year after year, and sometimes they let them into my house, which is a no-no. But that was before my parents' belongings were at the house, so that they could see nothing was wrong. There was food in there and so forth. And I would talk to them outside at their car and stuff, but I just didn't want to uh, be involved because they weren't too friendly or not your friendly thing. But here's the rule about this: if you have a CPS worker or a social worker that wants to come to your house, they have to have a warrant to come in there. And I'm telling you that because there's things that make your case worse by them looking in your home and trying to see what's wrong or how you take care of your kids. And um, when you let them into your domain, that's your castle. They technically, before they come in, that includes the police, they have to have a warrant out. And it's a warrant that it says that they can come into your house. The name on the warrant is the person they're trying to investigate, and they're supposed to tell what they're looking for. One thing that's so sad is that social workers and police don't usually tell you the charges of what's wrong. They're there to do their function, and it's really sad because we need social workers to protect our children. We need policemen to protect our community. So when you have bad apples, it makes it really hard and tough. And I was really sad because at the time I didn't know where the complaints were coming from, but they're so stupid. I mean, there's complaints that you didn't have electricity or didn't have water. I showed my utility bills. I showed that there is power, there is water, there's gas. So I was being destroyed. Not only did I have to have the storm with no job and my parents dying in the CPS case, it was just overwhelming. It always has been overwhelming. And it was a 3-year battle with me. Now, a second tool that you may want to implement that I found very useful is a notebook. And in the notebook, you make a list of the dates and times, um, what workers were present, who was present, any witnesses, and those kind of things. And then you list what the um, accusations or what became of that event, and then you have the conclusion, what was done or whatever is there. So it's a 4-part thing you write in a notebook, but you're going to need that info because 6 months down the line or a year down the line, you're going to forget. So that way you have a paper trail with you having all your notes. Some people record things. You got to be careful about the laws about recording, whether it can be used in court or not. So um, I find that having a notebook is a very valuable tool. So you need an attorney and you need a notebook. Those are two important tools. Um, so that's really good. Now, another thing too is the internet is full of information about social service and CPS. There's a lot of things you can find about by asking the question. So you want to make yourself more knowledgeable about CPS. Um, and also, you have to have an understanding. Now, when they're doing an investigation, they're assigned to a caseworker, and that course caseworker does like to come out, and you should refuse it. In fact, if you are contacted by social service again or by the police, you need to get your attorney. You need to talk to your attorney about it because it's really, really important that you get your children back, and it isn't they're not taken because of some vengeful or wrongful allegations. So your children are priceless. You can't replace them. They're something that you created with your partner, and that you being there and want to love them. I mean, people call in single parents, grandmothers, and so forth, and they have something all in common. They love their children. They want to be with their children. And I sympathize towards you because it isn't fair what CPS does. It isn't fair what they restrict you and how they believe lies, and then on top of that, they're supposed to be entrusted to bring the family together and and have it the way it is. Now, one thing, there are parents that make hiccups along the way. I mean, I don't know, the drug issue seems to be a big one. And what I'm saying about drugs is that you cannot have children in the home when there's drugs present. They have to be over the age of 21, I think, for alcohol, cigarettes, and marijuana. So you can't be doing drugs and raising a child. That will be a no-no, and they'll take the child from you for that reason. So it's a very, very, very hard um, acceptance to believe, but it is true, and you can work through it. You can fight through it. It's really important that you do not give up fighting for your children, your children's rights, or your rights. Your constitutional rights will be violated, and you need to keep track of them. You need to know your constitutional rights. Um, the 14th Amendment has things that help you with child dependency cases. It isn't all to protect some of the politicians right now that are talking about it. I don't want to get into politics, but you need to look at our amendments. You need to make sure your Constitution is right. Um, so soon after, I mean, I say roll the clock ahead 5 years from 2010 to 2015. I'm 5 years older. I'm 65, and they used deception where they conned the police department to send out a detective to investigate the home and so forth. Now, I was out picking up my son, and we were headed to go pick up, his mother, my wife, and we were about 15 minutes drive into it, and about 5 miles from school, and there was a um, stop sign near that school, and I had stopped. I did not do a California stop, which is where they don't stop 1 second to drive through it. I wait at least 3 seconds, and I count to myself. But this detective couldn't pull me over, and the reason why is that he didn't have a black and white car, no lights to pull over, and people don't pull over for strange cars. That's for your safety. And so he got a black and white guy, uh, black and white police car, that made a U-turn and uh, came up to me with the lights blaring. So I pulled over for him, and he got out, and I asked him, "What can I do for you, officer?" And he said that, "Did you know you ran a stop sign?" I said, "Well, no, I did not run the stop sign." I explained to him, and by the way, I recognized he wasn't there at the scene, and he was using the detective's word, and that's why they give me a ticket. All the detective says is, follow me to your home. We need to go inside." I said, "What do you mean we?" He was very vague. He said you have to follow him, and there's no choice about it. So I took the doctor's advice, and I am um, so happy that um, that I remain calm. It's very important that you remain calm. And so he he forced me to go to his house without a court order. He didn't have a warrant. I could have asked for that. I did not know those things. Again, without an attorney, I'm trying to handle this open heart surgery, and it's really, really, really hard. So we fall back to the home, and at my home are three social workers, two code enforcement, five firemen, and two uniformed police with the detective. So all these adult people are in my front yard. And I live in a private community, and so I imagine my neighbors were thinking the worst. I was wondering if my house was burned or broken into. Why are these people here? And they wanted to inspect my home. And I believed and trusted the federal government. I believed and trusted the social worker. That was a mistake because when they saw my parents' belongings in the house, even though they were neatly stacked on boxes and the furniture was stacked, they said that's neglect to your children. You can endanger the children. You're not protecting them because you have those boxes and furniture. So that's how they're able to get me um, out of the home. I mean, to get into the home, and also to get my children away from us because they thought it was so extreme. They couldn't put them. They had to put them in some place, so they put them in a shelter. Well, let me tell you, the shelters of um, Orange County are really bad. I mean, this one was next to a prison, next to dependency court, and it was not clean. It was overcrowded. And on top of that, the kids had a play area that had live hornets, bees that could have stung them. And so the food was terrible. We went and visited at night. The next step is, of course, a safety plan. That safety plan is to make arrangements for your children to stay at one of the family members. Um, it's a lot. It's it's a lot easier if they can, but they stay in the shelter for a couple days. Then we had the family plan, and they were going to stay with my wife's sister and a husband. And we thought it'd be a short time, but it ended up being a long time. That's one thing. Be prepared for your case to be a long time with that. So um, we put them with my wife's sister, which is good. And um, we had no time to see um, our children. It was so sad. It was so sad that they're taking it away. Now, I'm kind of troubled because I do talk about feelings that hurt. I'm only human. And, during this planning meeting, the children aren't present, so they have no input where they stay or how the parents are doing. That's one thing you know is CPS will alienate the children from you parents by not telling the children what's going on or what the plans are. Also, they don't have them attend any of the meetings that CPS has. So they're kept in the dark. Now, besides they can be put with a family member, they can also be put, uh, if they're Native American Indian children, can be put with a tribe. And I'll explain to you that more in a minute, but I do want to mention that very first tool I talked about, Mr. Vincent W. Davis. He's a great attorney. You should see him. He's offering a half an hour to an hour of free consultation to talk with him about your case with your children and the strategies which you can use to get your children back. So it's a free 30 minutes to an hour. It's at 888-888-6582. Make sure when you call in, you tell them Bob Pace sent you. If you don't, there's a big discount that you get that you have to pay for. Um, the other thing at the planning meeting is that if your children are Native American Indians, now what I mean by that, Native American Indians, is that the tribe can help out and take care of and get your children back to you. Now, what all that means are there's an act passed in 1979 called the Indian Welfare Child Act. It's called ICWA, is the acronym, but it's the Indian Welfare Child Act of 1979. And that's a federal act, and it's supposed to be put all their states there. So if you have problems, you have the right to have your children turned over to a tribal. Now, they could be a reservation, a ranchero, or they could be also a small tribal area or something like that. Now, what that means is the Act of 1979, CPS is required to contact the Native American Indian tribes and establish that you're a resident of the tribe or could be a resident of the tribe. Now, um, this act, they're better off. CPS is going to make money off your kids. They really, 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 really are. And so um, it's very important that you get this attorney and call in 888-888-6582 and talk to him and also retain him because you need him to fight these cases. I did not know about the ICWA too because the social services did not offer a real good uh, exposure to what they can do for you. CPS, again, is not your friend. They're full of deception and lying to you and stuff. So after the planning meeting, we were able to put our children into my wife's sister and her husband, and they thought it would only be a month or two, but it ended up being 3 years till we got our kids back. And so after a while, they didn't want to continue to take care of them. It was too much work. Children is a lot of work. You as parents, I mean, we'd drive them to and from school. We go to the open houses. We go to the teacher parent meetings, and you feed them, you bathe them, you're responsible for them, and everything. And it is a lot of work, but it's loving work to love and receive, and I don't mind doing that kind of work. But they don't want children, and they only do it to help out their sister when they took our kids in, because we're going through a nightmare, not knowing that these allegations were made by family members that weren't true. And so they, with that arrangement, then we could visit our children. And it was good because when we visit the children, we could still talk to them and so forth. Um, when you, the next step's going to happen after further investigation is they're going to get you into programs. And they're outlined in your plan. Now, when you go to dependency court shortly thereafter, the plan will be instituted and you need to follow it. Now, this rule, one important thing is called a 388. And I'm bringing up the 388 to tell you that it's a California um, um, law there. And what it's for is when you want a petition to modify in the juvenile court, the dependency court, your current plan. Let's say you got some, it's the Penal Code 388. Let me see if I can find it here. It says any parent or person having interest in a child who is a dependent child of the juvenile court or the child himself or herself through properly appointed guardian may, upon grounds of change of circumstances or new evidence, petition a court in the same action in which the child was found to be. Now, all that just really means is that they got new evidence and they're going to petition the court to modify the plan. And that 3.8 is so important because you'll need that to modify your plan. So I just want to talk all about that. Um, you can Google that form. It's the 388. You can say petition 388, California Code 388, and you'll see lots of things that come up about it and so forth. And it's something that your attorney should know about. And that's a good thing to do when you're talking or interviewing an attorney. You can find out if he's good or not. This is, are you familiar with the 388? And if he does describe it and so forth, then you know, okay, this attorney is pretty smart. It's on the ball. Because you need every help you can get when you're involved in, you know, just involved with child protection services. Now, I would also like to point out that if you want to, anybody that wants to talk, you can call 626-698-0990. And that's my phone. I'll put you live on the show with my speaker, and you can interact with that. Also, um, the um, the other number, 888-888-6582, you can call the office and schedule a time to be a guest speaker. I know we had one today, but they must have some internet problem because they're cutting off. But you can call them and pick out the time or date that I'm on. Now, I'm on 7 days a week, twice a day. One time at 10 in the morning, another time at 7 o'clock at night, and that's all Pacific Standard Time because I'm on the west coast of California, Southern California. So, um, now that you got your case going along and you're making your programs and plans, do everything is asked of you, but just try to be yes, no answers. Try not to discuss a lot of things with them. Try to um, be very vague with them because they're not going to be your friend. They're not going to help you, and your life is going to get miserable as it gets. You think it's getting better, but um, as you go through these programs, they're like parenting classes, things like that. Don't fight it, just do it. Get it over with. There is some valuable information you can learn from it. So, you know, it's not bad, but it's something that you need to um, be aware of. Be aware of. Now, as the case moves along, the home situation will change. Now, our kids went to a group home, and group homes that we had was terrible. It was being run by a boys' town, and boys' towns are geared up to kids that don't have parents. But when you have a loving mother and father, that want to be involved with their kids and take care of them, then they should be, and there should be encouragement to do so. That reunification with the family doesn't seem to exist anymore in CPS, and so the people that have called in, the people that have said things, are some of the horror stories. If you have a child during your CPS investigation, and if your child is born, CPS will take away your child. They'll take away your child so quick. They have no qualms to do it. They'll show up with a policeman, use deception because they need a court order and they'll con to take away your child right at birth. Right at birth. That is so sad that they do that. And I cannot imagine there, but I have lost a child, meaning that she's divorced us. So that does hurt us um, with that. Now, um, some of the stories I've heard, um, they're on recorded so you can hear them again. But one parent's living out in Alaska in a tent. And you know how cold that must be because Alaska is pretty much cold year round. And so he's got a tent that he put up and stuff there. He lives there while he's fighting his case. So I know you guys are dedicated and you love your children immensely and so forth. Now, I'd like to go over some other topics here. Um, we talked about the ICWA, the Indian Child Welfare Act, and how um, they can be put in with, the tribal communities, the rancheros, um, or the reservations, and they will help your child. That's what they're set up for. They're not going to make money off your child. They're very good about that. And um, so there's that tribal thing there. Now, CPS workers, I told along, may also show up to your house without notice. They cannot legally force their way into your house, on your home. They have to have your explicit permission before entering. But they can get a court order or believe their child is in immediate danger. They don't have to abide by the rules. So if they're in immediate danger, well, they thought my parents' belongings were immediate danger to my kids. They need to be taken out of the house. It was really, 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 really sad that they got involved and take that, so forth. Now, the things that CPS can do. First of all, the grounds to remove a child. If you are abusing your child and not taking care of your child properly, someone else is abusing your child and not taking him or her properly, or you're not protecting your child from that, or your child's in danger of being abused or taken care of by probably somebody else, they will take your child. They will take your child. Um, and some people say, well, can I sue CPS for emotional distress? No, you can't sue them for emotional distress. Just the lawsuit would never happen. So, and it says also if you're allowed to record, technically parents may record CPS caseworkers if they're party to the conversation, at least one party consents. So someone has to consent to it. But think twice before secretly recording a caseworker. It's best to ask caseworkers to record them, even get their signed consent, because they will turn the table on you and so forth. Can California workers take your children? Last night, someone said that her children taken. She didn't know the reason. And before the removal of a child is required, they have to conduct a reasonable investigation and provide a reason to prove that child is in immediate danger. Now, what to say or not say um, is the best way is to say nothing at all, because they will use what you say as uh, as evidence when they're investigating you. And then the social workers will approach each case with a presumption of guilt, and they're very biased um, when they have um, conversations they have with you. One thing that comes up a lot of times, can CPS use your past against you? Yes, it's difficult to hide information just because someone occurred in another state. Evidence of your past is relevant in a CPS case. And that's sad. If you have previous CPS mayors, they'll use that against you. Now, here they talk about the 14th Amendment. We've heard all this week about the 14th Amendment about Donald Trump, um, but here in the 14th Amendment, um, removing a child from a parent's custody violates the 14th Amendment unless the removal is authorized by a court order, typically a warrant, or is supported by reasonable cause to believe the child's immediate danger or serious beyond that. They're supposed to protect your rights. The 14th Amendment is supposed to protect your rights, your constitutional rights. Now, I said that CPS within 24 hours of complaint have to investigate, and the investigation can take up to 30 days, but however, it can go longer times. So be prepared of that investigation. Here's a question here. Can CPS talk to my child in school without permission? Unfortunately, CPS is legally allowed to interview a child without a parent. However, without a court order ordering the parents to allow for the investigation, the parent is allowed to ask either counsel for the attorney present and themselves be aware of the investigation. So they did take my children. Didn't they interviewed my children in school, but my children didn't say anything that was negative to us as parents, luckily, and they didn't pursue it any much longer. But they did interview my children. There's ploys that they did. There's ploys that they do there, and another question came up. Okay, some violations of the 14th Amendment. One violation could be if a state prohibits an individual from entering into an employment contract because he or she was a member of a particular race. Um, Now, how long can CBS stay open in California? I only mention California because I got to be careful. Each state can be a little bit different. But for instance, if a case is particularly complex, the parents are not cooperating, and the court has to get involved, then CPS could last over a year. However, there are optional resources. The case is simple, all parties involved are cooperative, then then it could only be a few weeks to months. Well, mine was 3 years. So we got my boys back, and I had to hire an attorney because I tried to. I keep emphasizing the attorney thing as a valuable tool. The attorney that they give you, called a public defender, is not going to be very good because their caseload is 20 or more, and they're trying to handle all those cases there and work you into the system. So it is a terrible thing for having that long system there. So, question: are CPS reports confidential in California? The county is responsible for investigating the suspected abuse. This is not your job. Your report is confidential, and you cannot report abuse, and you can't report abuse anytime. I'm trying to find common. Now, there's something else. Ask me, what is the rule of four in the law? Now, that being said, um, let me see here. Uh, the rule of four is the Supreme Court's practice of granting a petition review only if there are at least four votes to do so. The rule is unwritten, internal one, and it's not detected by any law of the Constitution. Someone has always asked about that. So I'm trying to ask questions, you know, that parents have asked in the past there. So um, I also want to mention something called CASA. Now, CASA stands for a California Court Appointed Special Advocate Associates. It's a volunteer that ensures that children and youth in foster care have a voice in the services. They need a stable future. A CASA volunteer or court appointed special advocate works one on one with foster youth advocating to their best interests. Well, I found out that CPS, so Child Protective Service, has a tendency to use them for information they may get there. So you can't even trust the CASA. It's like having a big brother, a big sister, become friends with your child. And again, that's when they're going to be put into foster care. And again, a lot of this is written for kids that don't have parents. It's a sad thing, but there are kids right now that don't have parents, or parents are so bad they don't want to take care of them. So you got to be really careful of CASA. And so, they have requirements. They have to be trained a little bit and so forth to be. Uh, um, but the judge is one that appoints it in the court there. So they are supposed to help, but they didn't help my kids. In fact, what's so sad is my son was 15 at the time. He had a CASA appointed. And 14 years later, he's still seeing his CASA. And even though our case is dismissed and our kids are back, I still think CPS is fishing. And it's very strange that this volunteer wants, and it's a girl, and he's a young man at 24. So I really question why a woman that's married, that has a life of her own, is still pursuing a friendship. And he says it's a mentor. So I don't know what they're mentoring. And I think it's important. And I have not told me he couldn't see her, but it really questions my mind about the purpose of a CASA and what they do. Um, that a court appointed, volunteer there to help out with children. It's, these kind of things are all geared up for children that don't have parents that care. When you have children that care, and all of you do out there care about your children, you should be able to, um, you know, uh, get your children back, especially if you agree to complete the programs of parenting classes or other things you need to do, like if you have a drug problem, being drug free by testing and so forth. And, and then filing those under a 388 petition to make changes to your existing plan. So I strongly recommend that you all um, watch your children carefully. Don't give up. We're running slow on the time right now. Um, it's been a long day for me. And if I come across a little tired, I am. But, I'm 74 now. I'm still trying to get my kids back. And I'm still trying to look for work. I have found some work, but they lay you off because they think you're too old. It's really been a troublesome thing there, but I appreciate you listening and I appreciate your support. And I know you'll get your children back. You just got to stick with it. It's the hardest thing not to. So make sure that you contact my office, 888-888-6582. Ask for Mr. Davis. Vincent Davis, and he will give you a free consultation about the strategies of how to fight CPS and get your children back. And he's an excellent family law attorney. He has trial background. He goes locally, Southern California, Northern California, and all over the country there. So I it's free, and you should no reason if you want to talk to him. After you talk to him, you may want to retain him, and I hope you do because I did, and it was the greatest thing I can do there. So um, this is getting to the end of our show, and again, if you want to be a speaker on the show, call the same number 888-888-6582. Make sure whether you want to speak to Mr. Davis or be a guest on the show that you mention my name, Bob Pace. And that is very, very, very important. So um, I hope to see you all later today. I'll be on at 7 o'clock tonight. And if any of you want to be a guest speaker, please call in. And I hope all of you are very successful in the year ahead. And I hope the year ahead brings much happiness. Hang in there and take care of your children. God bless you. And I'm Bob Pace signing off.